All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. This segment is called Michael's Magic Moment. It's my opportunity to play a little snippet from one of our previous episodes, which resonated with our listeners, that I received feedback from, or I felt really had an impact on some people's lives. Hope you enjoy. Does money make someone happy? This is something I've talked about in the past, and this is also something that we all regularly hear. We see it in movies, we see it on social media, and it's a great question. Some people believe it does, some people believe it doesn't. Today I want to reflect on something. My family and I just came back from a trip to Bali. We were away for a week, and it was actually the children's first overseas trip together as a family. We went years ago when we had our first child, and he was really young. But this was our first proper family trip, and it was great. It was great. Personally, Bali wouldn't be on my number one place to go, but when you go, you realize why people love it so much. It is amazing. Like the people are so nice. The scenery, the food. There's so many things to do. And for those that have been to Bali, something that they'll tell you is that things there are really cheap. Now, when I say cheap, I mean cheaper than Australia. The food is cheaper than what you'd pay here in Australia if you wanted to buy a pizza or have a drink. The paying people to take you around for the day, going on tours, it's a lot cheaper than Australia, mainly because of their currency. But at the same time, it's also a country where there are a lot more people which, let's just say, they're not as well off as us here in Australia in general. We have a lot of government, a lot of support from the government. I'm not sure if they do. I don't know enough about Bali to comment on, living in Bali and what it's like. But just talking to people there and meeting people at the shops, the easiest way to explain it is that they don't make as much as us. They're not as well off as us here in Australia. And in general, you have to hustle to get food. There are more people. I met so many people which really didn't have much, and they're just doing whatever they can to get by. And the thing that I found as well is talking to them, and this is what is the topic of today's episode, is that they're actually pretty happy. Now, they admit to me that those that I talk to admitted to me that life is tough, and they admit that there are some days they don't have much to eat, and they just work with what they've got. And they just make it work. But generally speaking, they're very optimistic. And we started talking about these, and we caught lots of cabs, and we had a couple of drivers, and we got into some good discussions while we were driving places. And it made me really question, why do people in developed countries, I'd say we're pretty entitled here in Australia. Like we've got government support when we need it. There is so much opportunity. Why do people in developed countries seem so sad, And I know there are obviously many reasons for it. We all go through personal things in our lives, as anyone in the world does. But generally speaking, we're rich compared to some people in countries like that. And it made me start to think about that question: does money actually make people happy? Now, I did a bit of research online, and from what I can see, there are some polls and there are some studies to show that, yes, money actually does make you happy compared to someone that doesn't have any money. So just to rephrase, those that have money are happier than those that don't. But there are also some to show the opposite as well. And for me, it was just about trying to figure out why, or just to start asking questions. Now, I got told by one person that they're happier because they've got much better social lives than those that live in other countries. They just explain that, for example, they don't care about materialism. They're not consumed with that. They're not consumed with having the best house or having the nicest car. They just want a car that gets them from A to B that is not going to break down as much. They just want a house that's safe. It's essentially, they just want something that meets the average standard, or something that's enough for them. Which it exists in all societies, but in our society, we see it all the time, where a lot of us are just trying to get better and better. They're trying to get the car they want. They're trying to go on the holiday they want. They're trying to do all these things, me included. And when you do these things, and there's nothing wrong with it, but when you do these things, it's very easy to forget about the basics. It's very easy to forget about the basics of life, such as spending time with family and doing things that make you happy on a day-to-day basis. I did an episode the other day about following your passion. We did a Michael's Magic Moment. We went back to an episode I did with a very special guest. We talked about following your passion and the importance of, working to enjoy life, not to endure life. The other thing that I found is that in Bali, and this is something we don't see as much here in Australia, I haven't seen it in a long time, but there's a big emphasis on spending a lot more time with friends and family, because they have more time to do that because they're not as consumed by materialism. There are some days, some people will just do nothing, and they're okay with that, because that's just normal for them to do nothing. And for those people, they have the time to see friends and family. And doing some research, and again, through talking to people, it seems to be a common trend where people in countries like Bali, they've got more time just to socialize, to hang out with friends, to hang out with family. And that in turn builds great relationships. And you can only imagine what it does to someone's mental health when they're around friends and they can do things that make them happy. And, compared to someone that is living in a society or has a lifestyle, let's talk about lifestyle for a second, where it takes a lot to make them happy. They have to go to an amazing restaurant. They have to buy an amazing handbag. It can't just be something average. They have to go on this really good holiday. It needs to be a proper holiday. One night away isn't enough. When we have higher standards, it's harder to be happy, I guess, because we have to work harder to be happy. Because of this, people in the West, generally speaking, get very isolated from each other, because they're trying, they live in bigger houses, which have big fences, for example, whereas over there, I saw some houses where, they've got big fences, but I saw some houses that had no fences in between them. And I saw people living in a house together, and, the ability to just rock up to someone's house and be like, hey, that was one of the examples one of the drivers gave me, that they have friends and family. They just turn up if they want to visit them. They can see them anytime. Whereas in our culture, it's a bit different. You don't just turn up unannounced to someone these days. You sort of let them know that you're coming, or you check if it's okay to come, or you make plans to see them, because there's a chance they won't be home. So there's a lot more over there of, just being a bit more casual like that. And in turn, that, again, it builds relationships. And I guess if you're not working crazy hours, you have more time to socialize. Again, compared to a lot of people here in Australia, well, most Western countries, where they work big hours to get by. They work big hours. And I'm talking about clients, I'm talking about me in general. You have to work big hours, because naturally life just becomes more expensive as well. So there's the social part of it. There's the facet of not having to always work so hard to keep up with a particular lifestyle. And I'll just go back to the idea of just focusing on the basics. Having enough, having shelter, feeling safe, having food to eat, and being healthy. For us, these are our basics as humans. These are the things that we need as human beings. There's a concept called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's like a pyramid, and it talks about these different things that we need in our life. It starts with physiological needs, safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization. And the first one being physiological needs, breathing, needing food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep. This is the bottom of the pyramid, and these are the things I'm talking about. The other parts, like feeling love and belonging, safety and security, again, these are the things that naturally happen, I guess, when you socialize more and you have a good relationship with your neighbor and your friends and your family. And then there's self-actualization and self-esteem as well. And these come through sometimes through spirituality, or sometimes it comes through, social environments. And we can relate to some of this. But again, when I was there and talking to different people, I was thinking about this as well. And I was thinking about the fact that if there's anything that we can take away from what I've explained, and if there's anything that I took away from being there, is that we just need to enjoy what's around us. We just need to be happy with what's around us. It's okay to work and to strive for more, and that's something that's inside of us. And that's something that we should always do. We should always be growing and developing. But you can't forget about the basics. I've got a few guests that I'm going to have on the show really soon, and we've talked about this, and I don't want to ruin any surprises, but we talked about the importance of focusing on the basics. Money is great, having nice things is great, but it's so important to focus on what's really important. And I feel that personally, that's something I really learned from Bali. And I feel like if we can all take something out of that and keep reminding ourselves, I need that reminder all the time. If we can keep reminding ourselves of these things, hopefully we'll just become happier people so that we can do better, be better, and feel better. Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.